I'm Tony Tomzak from GSA IT hardware category, and this session is going to focus on the different ways a customer can purchase and procure laptops and desktops, part of the GSS program from GSA. So really what we're going to cover, the first part of this session is really going to give you a foundation of the laptop desktop program from a government-wide perspective. And then really the remainder and the most of the presentation is really focused on how a customer can actually procure the items from GSA. It's really the different kind of consumption models, if you will. Again, the government-wide strategic solutions for desktops and laptops program, for the sake of being long-winded, I'm just going to reference it as GSS from here going forward. So why does this prior to GSS, what was the market in terms of how did the government purchase laptops and desktops? Well, really, there was no standard process in place. The government did not band together to buy similar products. They lacked little visibility in understanding what was purchased in terms of configuration, quantities, and they really didn't understand from a prices paid perspective what one agency was buying when compared to another agency for a similar machine. And that second bullet really highlights that. One laptop ranged between $450 and $1,300 for the same machine. Again, really from when you look at it from a government perspective, if we did not have a standard way of buying it, think of how it leveraged or affected industry. We would award and solicited hundreds, if not thousands, of different contracts, and how that affected industry. They would have to quote each. There was no standard way in terms of configuration. It basically was a very disjointed process, and it left the government a very little visibility in what we're buying, from who, and how much we were paying. So what are we going to do about it? Well, back in 2013, the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, established this team called Workstations Category Team. And really what that team focused on back then was what the government had been doing in terms of their processes, how they were buying. Obviously, they found out it was very disjointed, but then really on how they can, moving forward, how could they better consolidate in terms of customers buying similar machines? How could they improve the acquisition process? How can they work better with industry? So really, they issued this memo, and it was basically the OMB policy memo 16-02, improving the acquisition and management of common information technologies, laptops, desktops. And it was issued back in 2015, and it is still current. And that is basically the governing document for the GSS program. So really, it's kind of leveraging strategic sourcing, the best-in-class contracts, which I'll touch on here momentarily, and just really getting understand of how can we better improve meet the needs of 80% of the federal government's computer buying. So the standard laptop, desktop, tablet, that is the majority of the government is buying. How do we improve that process? So we basically in that memo, it references the preferred contract vehicles that customers should be leveraging when buying compliant machines with the GSS program. And those are GSA Schedule 70, NASA SOUP, HHS CIOCS, excuse me, and Army Chest. So those are considered the core WCT. So again, I go back to, this is an OMB managed program. Those acquisition groups across those different best-in-class vehicles, we work together to establish the and work to make the GSS program better. But then how do we do that? We reach out to over 25 different agencies, including DoD, and then we work very, very close with industry. And again, as I referenced earlier, the government-wide strategic solutions, GSS, is the coined term to refer to the specifications. So what are those specifications? The easiest way to basically ensure that we meet 80% of the government's laptop and desktop buying is to create specifications. And the specifications are called version. Currently, we're under version 5. We started at version 1 and have worked all the way up to version 5, and we're in the process as of today to evaluate version 5 and see what needs to be changed based on market analysis with our industry partners, but then also working with customers to ensure that the current GSS specifications meet their needs and then kind of fit into that 80% of the government's laptop and desktop needs and buying habits. They're evaluated every 12 months. They're refreshed every 12 months. We start the cycle about 9 months prior to the end of the 12 months, if you want to say, just to give us time to do the refresh. So think of these GSS specifications, whichever version there is. Again, version 5 is intact right now. Those are standard specification, basically governed by the Office of Management and Budget, OMB. And it doesn't matter if you went to GSA, NASA SOUP, CIOCS, Army Chess, those specifications are identical on all three of those or all of those contracting vehicles. How we deploy those and how we offer them to the customer is one of the biggest differences. So again, currently under the version 5, we have 7 configurations. We have 3 laptops, 3 desktops, and a tablet. I'll go a little bit more in depth in that also. And then below the screenshot on the right-hand side is you can actually hyperlink to the version 5 specs that are posted on our landing page, but I'm going to show you where those are in a screenshot here momentarily. So what is the process? I kind of alluded to some of this earlier. What is the process to refresh these GSS specifications? So we solicit feedback. The WCT solicits feedback from agencies. We work and meet one-on-one with the major OEMs that manufacture laptops and desktops. We meet with the major chip manufacturers, so all of those, we get input for all of them, those industry partners. Again, we solicit feedback from our customer agencies across the entire federal government to include DoD and civilian. And then we basically evaluate what we give them the current specs. Again, we're under version 5, and they say what we ask them to what is emerging and where do you see us in the next year? Because we want to ensure that the specifications reflect what industry is doing, but stay in compliance with what the government is required to do. And then we draft specifications. We again share those back out with industry. And then once they're finalized, they're considered part of the best-in-class acquisition programs, which I referenced earlier, those GWAC contracts that I mentioned earlier. And then how we deploy those across the contracting vehicles is different. And then we have some very specific terms and conditions that are evaluated in terms of standard warranty, delivery terms, EPEAT, Energy Star. All that is standard across of all of the GSS specifications and the BIC providers. So what is GSS accomplished? Basically, the WC accomplished so far, as you can see, our refresh process is pretty consistent. It happens usually right around late spring and early summer. And as I said earlier, we're in the process of evaluating version 5 specifications, and then we'll launch a version 6 probably as again a late spring, but if not early summer. So I kind of gave you an overview of the government-wide GSS program. So again, you have those different contracting vehicles that are the specifications. Once they're finalized, it doesn't matter if they're version 5, version 6, or whatever. Once those specifications are finalized by the WCT, they're shared with those best-in-class vehicles, and then they work through the process that is applicable to each one of those buying vehicles. And the rest of the presentation is really going to focus on GSS deployment of the GSA's deployment of the GSS specification. So everything I'm going to show you from here on will really focus on how GSA presents and sells the current specifications being version 5 specs to our customers. So the first and foremost thing we always like to kind of highlight is, who do we have selling those? So we have a vendor pool, and with that vendor pool, once those specifications are shared, are finalized, we share those specifications with our vendor pool. And one thing I really want to highlight in this vendor pool is to kind of show that there is many different social economic statuses for them, for our companies. Again, there's about 29 companies over the next 3 slides I'm going to show you. And we have the major OEMs being Dell, HP, and Lenovo, but then we also have a lot of small businesses. So if you want to do a certain type of social economic status set aside, you can leverage GSA's GSS program and do a woman-owned set aside procurement, knowing you're going to be using GSA's GSS program, so you get best-in-class credits for that, but then you know that these vendors have been vetted by GSA and part of the GSS program. And then over to the far, the next couple boxes to the right, you have a company POC, so you could reach out to the company direct, and then you also have the GSA contracting officer listed there also if you have any questions. Again, this is slide 2 of 3 of the GSS vendors. Again, there's a fairly large pool. It's just under 30, and you can see we have different OEMs listed here. We have Dell, HP, and Lenovo, and then the last slide. So I'm going to show you here momentarily via a screenshot where these where this vendor list is hosted. So if you ever want to know, is a certain company part of GSA's GSS program, you'll be able to download a copy. So if you remember anything as we go through this session today, is if you ever want to see the GSA's GSS program, start at GSAadvantage.gov. So if you look at this screenshot right here, under the special programs, there's 8 tiles. The top right one says laptops and desktop computers, and then it has that GSS in white letters, that icon, we're going to call it, with the 8 stars, 4 in the top and 4 in the bottom. That icon, that GSS icon, or badge, as some people will call it, is very important, and I'll kind of allude to that here momentarily. So if we were to click on that icon, we're going to get a very similar rendering to this. So this is our current version 5 landing page, but as GSA Advantage gets refreshed here very soon, in early spring, it may change a little bit, but needless to say, it's still going to offer the same configurations. So as I said earlier, under the current version 5 specs, we have 7 different configurations. And the way we have set this landing page up is we put them, if you want to say, in buckets of each individual configuration. So under the top, we have the version 5 desktop. So you have the desktop small form factor, / all-in-ones. Then you have the desktop mini towers, and then you have the high-end desktop. The next row in the middle there, you have laptops, and you have the lightweight laptops, and the high-end laptops. And then the final one on the bottom left is the tablets. Again, that's 7 total, and all of the machines that, if you were to click on each one of those, all the machines that are listed there are part of GSA's GSS program and offered by one of those 26 vendors that I showed you on those 3 previous slides. I'd like to draw your attention over to the right-hand side where we have some key information, and I'll start at the top and work down to the bottom. One of the most important things is to contact us. The email on this website is workstations@gsa.gov. That auto forwards to my work email. So if you were to email me there, if you were to click on that email, it auto forwards to me, and I usually respond within about 12 hours, if not shorter. So if you have any questions after today, you can go to the landing page, click on there, and shoot us an email, and we'll address your concerns or questions. The next thing on the right-hand side, the resources, is the OMB policy letter. Again, I kind of alluded to that, the M1602 policy letter. If you can download that and review it, and it gives you the whole basis of the laptop desktop program or GSS program. And then the last section there is the resources. So I told you earlier I was going to show you where the version 5 specs are. That's the bottom link. And then the top link is the vendor list that I showed you on the 3 previous slides. So vendor list, version 5 specs, OMB policy memo, all the governing stuff for GSA's GSS program. And then you can link off to one of the buckets and look at some machines that are offered. So if we were to click on the link where that arrow, that bottom arrow is, and it says V5 laptop, we're going to get a rendering very similar to this. And the way we have set up our GSS results are, normally when you go into a GSA Advantage, items are grouped together by part number, and then they show different how many resources that is available. We did not do that in the GSS page. Every item is a standalone, so it is not in a consolidated. It's called an expanded view. So every vendor's product is listed individually in here. So that's why you see so many products. So as you look through this, you're going to notice a couple things. Is there's that icon. If you look at where that blue arrow is pointing, and I do know it's kind of hard to see, but you have a GSS icon, then you have some Energy Star items there, also icons. But the GSS icon is actually controlled by one of my team members in the IT hardware category. So the vendor must load the items correctly before we're going to assign the GSS icon on to the item and move them part of, the landing page that they would render in here. So we ensure that the vendors do load the items correctly to include, having pictures and all that information, which I'm going to show you here in the next following slides. But it's very important that you know that these are an expanded view and that all machines that are part of the GSS program will have the GSS icon assigned to them. So what is so special how we load these items? So first and foremost, as you look through here, probably one of the first things that you'll see is there's a picture. We ensure that all of the items have a picture assigned to them. But then also, as you go down where that top arrow is, you will see that there's a lot of information in there. And these are standard items that are information that is available for all items loaded into GSA Advantage, but I'm going to highlight some things that are special to GSS items. First and foremost, manufacturer's part number. I work very close with the OEMs that are going to offer GSS items, and we get a list from them. And we know what part numbers that the OEMs are going to offer part of their GSS program. So then that is shared with the resellers, and we ensure that when a reseller is going to load, and for this, discussion, it's the 3540. We know what that manufacturer's part number is, and we need to ensure that that vendor loads that part number in exactly how the OEM wants it. We don't want a dash in the front or a semicolon or anything like that. No altering of manufacturer's part number. The second thing down is the manufacturer's name. All GSS items start with the manufacturer's name, and in this case it's Dell, then follow on with GSS laptop. If it was an HP model, it would be HP GSS laptop, Lenovo GSS laptop, and so on and so forth. If it was a mini tower, it would say mini tower. So we put that in there to ensure that if a customer doesn't know if it's GSS and they don't see an icon for some reason, they will always know that it's part of the GSS program by looking at the manufacturer's name. And then also the second arrow down, you can see it points directly to the GSS icon. And that's, it says government-wide strategic solutions GSS. So that icon, again, is assigned by one of my teammates, and he ensures that the items are loaded correctly before we'll assign that icon. Again, we have pictures on there, but one of the other things I really want to highlight is the description. As I said earlier, these machines are created off of, they're basically pre-configured machines to a certain specification. So all the salient characteristics are provided to industry, and they create machines based on those minimum saline characteristics. Those key saline characteristics are listed in the description. So you'll have the operating system being Windows 10. It'll tell you what processor, how much memory, if there's a graphics card, what EPEAT it is, Energy Star, all that key information that maps back to the OMB version specifications. Again, we're under version 5 now. They all kind of shows that linkage back to them. And then one of the things I wanted to show you on the bottom is all those vendors listed. So we have multitude of vendors that are all offering a GSS compliant 3540, and they all have the GSS icon assigned to them. In that second, you can see the icon listed there, and it starts with Blue Tech and it ends with MCP computers. So as you look through this, you can do a comparison of different vendors to see what they offer, their price difference, maybe it's a different option or whatever. So as we've run this program for a few years now, we have realized that the minimum specifications are the minimum specifications, meaning that some customers want to, quote unquote, customize their machine to better fit their needs. And that may be adding a docking station. That may be a memory upgrade. It could be a multitude of different things. So over on that bottom arrow, you will see that there is the price, but right below there, you'll see the blue text that says options/accessories. If you were to click on that, you're going to get a rendering very similar to this. So this is the same machine we were just on, which is the 3540 at the same price. The big thing of this, and it's the same description, everything is the same. The big thing with this is now we can customize it with options and accessories that this vendor offered. So we can do an alternate CPU, we can do asset tagging, a docking station. I did a screenshot of one that was, you could upgrade from a 8 gig of memory up to 16 gig. And the price is listed there. So if you were going to buy a low quantity of machines, and we generally use less than 15, and you had a government purchase card, you can technically build a customized machine that is GSS compliant, do your options and accessories that you want, and check out with a credit card. And that will give you the ability to buy the machine via GSS program, but then it also gives the government the ability to see what different people are paying for prices paid. And that is kind of goes back to what we were not doing previously in terms of data analysis. So this is kind of the options and configuration tool. This tool I'm going to show you as we go through some other offerings that we have is identical. It's just different vendors are offering different options and accessories. Okay. So we get a lot of times we get asked is, is anybody really using GSA's GSS program? And as you can see there, that we have grown very much year over year. You can see we had a very big year from 17 to 18, and then again from 18 to 19. So the utilization has grown every year. And then one of the things is we have seen as we've brought on a lot of, I'll call them larger customers, is we've seen that when you compare savings for larger volume purchases. So we'll say a customer comes and says, I need to buy 100 machines. That price that I showed you in GSA Advantage is a quantity of one price. In accordance with 8.4, it always recommends that you seek additional discount at the task order level. So if you're going to come in and buy 100 machines from a certain vendor, we recommend that you seek additional discounts for that. And that's kind of alludes to that last bottom is large savings percentages are influenced by large volume commitments from several agencies. So we've seen a lot of customers, or quite a few customers, do their entire refresh through GSA's GSS program, and they have realized savings because they are now consolidating their quantities and are getting better price. Okay. So I kind of showed you what the GSA program is in terms of Advantage, GSA Advantage, and that can be really used for really two main reasons. One, for lower purchases in terms of quantity, again, 15 or less, but then for also market analysis. If you want to compare how many vendors are offering, a 7400 laptop and see what the different prices are, again, those are quantity one, that tool can be used for this. But when you're ready to make a larger buy, And so if you wanted to leverage the GSS program and do a larger buy, GSA has put blanket purchase agreements in place. So really, what is that? So real quick, I'll go through the competition details for the BPAs. Everything that is done through GSA is in accordance with 8.405. You have all the FAR clauses there, and I'll kind of go over those here in a couple minutes about. But just know that anything that's purchased through the BPAs are going to be compliance with the GS, or excuse me, in accordance with the FAR 8.405. So what are these BPAs? I'll kind of back up a little bit. The way we establish these BPAs is I showed you the vendor list of that, 26 to 29 vendors we have. What we do is we take that market basket that we got from the vendors. So you'll take the market basket from Dell, you'll take the market basket from HP and Lenovo. And in this case, we have 20 machines that meet the 7 different configurations for Dell. And then we have 16 for HP. And I think we're about 16 for Lenovo. They all map back to the GSS version 5 specs, but it's a different machine. It may be more of an entry level or more price competitive machine in terms of, the standard, or you may have one that has more bells and whistles on it. So once we get that market basket, we competed against all the eligible vendors. So in this case, we did a small business side set aside for the BPAs, one to a Dell provider, one to an HP provider, and one to the Lenovo provider. So we compete those, and only the vendors that are part of GSA's GSS program can compete for those BPAs. And so we take those, we compete it, and the lowest price technically acceptable vendor under the Dell category, under the HP category, and then in the Lenovo category, we get a single award winner for that. So we do a competition amongst our GSS vendors, and the lowest price technically acceptable is the awardee. So who can use it? It's government-wide to include state and local. Period of performance is 1 year with 2 option periods. And we awarded those in September of 2019. And if all options, and again, those are 2 option periods, if all options are exercised, they'll be active to 2022. What is on it? I kind of talked about that already. It's the full breadth of products. I told you how many numbers for each one of them that meet the version 5 GSS specifications. The base machines I kind of showed you earlier, we have that options and accessories configurator. They can be customized, but it's not limited to the options and accessories that are part of the options and accessories configurator that's loaded in Advantage. As long as the option or accessory is within scope of buying a laptop or desktop, it generally can be configured and bundled with a compliant GSS machine. So one of the biggest questions we always get with this is additional competition needed? And the answer is no. As I said earlier, we as GSA do the competition amongst our GSS vendors. We do one for the Dell vendors, one for the HP, and one for the Lenovo, and they compete it. And then, so basically the FAR clause is the ordering procedures for the 3 separate single award BPAs as FAR 8.405-3 c1. And basically it states, if the ordering activity establishes a single award BPA, authorized users may place the order directly under the established BPA when the need for the supply or services arises. So I'll give you a little more context there. If the ordering activity in the first sentence there, if you replace, if GSA establishes a single award, the ordering activity was GSA. And who can use it? That's, again, it's government-wide to include state and local. So again, we've done the competition. We can provide you the competition details, and I'm going to show you where those are here momentarily. A customer can leverage these BPAs at any time. So let's talk a little bit about pricing for the BPAs. Again, the pricing for the BPAs are quantity of 1. If you have a lower number of quantity of machines needed, you can check out with a purchase card, and we have that happen all the time. But if you have a larger number of machines, and we'll call it 15 or higher, we recommend that you contact us at the workstations@gsa.gov email address, and we will work with you to seek additional discounts for larger quantities. And then we have had some customers that take it even a step further, and they establish specific catalogs against the BPAs. And basically, if you can think of it this way, is you have the minimum GSS specifications at the BPA. They seek additional discounts for their estimated quantity for a given time period, and their specifications, and the reseller, it's a Dell reseller, an HP reseller, or the Lenovo reseller, offers them a price. And then whenever that customer needs to buy the machines, they can leverage that discounted price that's under the BPA. Okay. So what is on the BPA? So if you look at this, these are the I'll call it the market basket that I said earlier. So under the Dell BPA, there's 20 different items to include, excluding laptops and desktop, or excuse me, excluding the monitors. So we have 4 different types of lightweight laptops. That was what but they all meet the minimum GSS specifications. So you can see the different categories that I showed you on the GSS landing page. We have our lightweight laptops, we have our laptop category, our high-end laptop, our small form factors all-in-ones, our mini towers, our high-end desktops, and then we have our tablet. That's the 7 categories that I showed you earlier at part of the GSS program. But then also we did standalone TAA compliant monitors. Those monitors can be bought at any given time at any amount of quantity. So we have some very good TAA compliant monitors from most of the OEMs that can be offered. And as you look at the data to the right, I've said it multiple times, the pricing on GSA Advantage is a quantity of 1 price. So you have GSA schedule price for this item, then you have the BPA price, and then you can see we got a 32% discount. And that's quantity of 1, and that was a saving of $577. Okay, so this is for the Dell, provided by the Dell reseller, and this is the HP reseller. We have 2 different lightweight laptops. Still, there's 7 categories. Then you have multiple different machines, different part numbers, different models for the laptops. Then we have some high-end laptops, small form factors, all-in-ones again, mini towers, and then the high-end desktop. And then they have 3 different monitors also. Same data to the right, and you can see the different discounts, but this is for the HP provider. And then you have the Lenovo provider. They did 1 lightweight laptop, and then they did quite a few different laptop configurations, the high ends, the small form factors, and then the desktop high ends. Okay, so this kind of gives you an understanding of these are all the products configured to the minimum GSS specifications, part of GSA's GSS BPAs. Okay, so you might ask, what does utilization look like for the BPAs? And you can see year over year, the growth and utilization of the GSS BPAs have grown. Obviously, fiscal year 19 had the highest utilization, and we anticipate fiscal year 20 exceeding that $101 million. So the program has been very successful. A lot of customers are basically leveraging the BPAs because it is such a streamlined process. So kind of segues into why would somebody want to use this BPA instead of doing their own? It's a streamlined procurement process. We have already done the competition for the agency and state and local, as I said earlier. Anybody can leverage this. Huge time savings. If you were to put a procurement out on the street and post it for multiple days, it has to be out there in general. The average is generally somewhere between 30 and 45 days. Since we've already done this procurement, it's really the time left to do this is really seeking additional discounts, and then the customer, being the agency, procurement time internally to leverage a call order against the BPA. That's really the difference. Is additional competition needed? No, and I alluded to this FAR clause. I actually read it previously. It's accordance with FAR 8.405. And I'm going to show you the competition details here momentarily. What is on it? The V5 machines. The one thing I will stress is these V5 GSS machines. It doesn't matter if they're from Lenovo, HP, or Dell. They could be customized to meet the minimum GSS specifications and the customer's needs. The most important thing is that they're bundled with a compliant GSS machine and they're within scope of the GSS contract and BPA, and the machine meets the minimum specifications of V5. Again, for larger quantities, bulk buys, GSA will work with customers to seek additional discounts. And then we've had multiple customers establish catalogs against the BPA. We establish pricing based on the customer's anticipated and approximate spend and quantity for a given time. And in general, we have used fiscal year, and that below is the customers that have leveraged catalogs against GSA's BPAs. So the catalog process is kind of, I've already alluded to most of that, but they establish quantities, and basically the customer provides their estimated quantities and bill of materials for a fiscal year. They basically share that with the BPA holder that they want to work with, and meaning they want to buy, they're interested in buying a Dell product, an HP product, or Lenovo product, or all three. We've had some customers say, hey, I want to do an internal testing from all three of these OEMs. They get the test machines, and then they decide what machine better fits their needs, and then they leverage that BPA. Resellers will seek additional discounts based on the quantities that a customer has is what is going to drive discount. And then if we'll create specific catalogs for the customer. So think of your bill of materials for those machines that you need. It could be, we've had some customers that have up to about 7 different configurations, and we've had some that as low as 2 configurations for their entire agency. And then we create a catalog, and we give them the discounted price based on I'll call it the volume discount price for their configuration. We evaluate that catalog on a quarterly basis. And then whenever a customer wants to purchase a machine off of their catalog, they just reference the catalog, send the bill of material to the reseller, being either the Dell, HP, or Lenovo reseller. The reseller ensures that the BOM is accurate with the current price list, send it back to them, and then they cut the PO. And again, it reduces the acquisition time to approximately 5 days. So we house these or put them on our, they're part of GSA Advantage, but there is a sub page, part of the special program page in GSA Advantage called Advantage Select. And we house or post all of our single award BPAs in GSA Advantage Select. And I'll show you here how to get there. Again, if you were to go to GSA Advantage and click on, you get to the home page. Again, if you recall earlier, we started at the top right one that said GSS. This one, we're going to start in the lower left, and we're going to click on the one that has the big check mark icon, and it says GSA Advantage Select. Once you're going to get a page that looks identical to this as of right now. And that first listing of products there, you see you have a desktop, you have a laptop, a desktop, another laptop, and a couple desktops there to the right. You have that 5 products. All of that's a rotating display of products. And if you want to view all of the products that are part of GSA's GSS program under the BPAs, again, this is where our Advantage Select BPAs are. If you wanted to see what those looked like or where they were and see all the products, you would click the view all where that blue arrow is pointed, and you're going to get a rendering like this. This looks very similar to the rendering I showed you earlier off of the GSS landing page, except a couple different things. First and foremost, these are all BPA items, meaning they've already had a competition and they're awarded under single award BPA. So no further competition is needed for large quantities. And secondarily, there's another icon there now. So if you look at that 5290 machine, which is the first one where that arrow is pointing, you have the GSS icon, you have the Energy Star icon, and now you have the Advantage Select icon, which has the check mark. So if we were to click on that, you're going to get a rendering just like this. All of the information that I talked to you earlier about The GSS products in terms of manufacturer's part number and manufacturer's name, all that is identical, except there's a couple different additional items that I want to highlight. And one of the most important is where that blue arrow, the top one, is pointing to, where it says BPA terms. So as I said earlier, these are Advantage Select BPA items. They've been pre-competed. Now, if you were to click on, there's the BPA number. And then if you were to click on the link that says BPA terms, you would actually get the BPA document signed by the government contracting officer, and MCP representative, because this is an MCP BPA, and it would show you all the items that were awarded at the award of BPA. Okay, so that way you can see the actual BPA document. Secondarily, you'll see that there's three icons that I said earlier. You have the Advantage Select items, which means they're part of a single award BPA. Then you have the GSS icon, that's that second icon. And then the third icon is the Energy Star. The last thing I want to highlight is, and I alluded to it earlier, is about competition details. We still have the description in the bottom that covers all of the salient characteristics for the different core, I'll call it minimum GSS specifications. If we were to click on competition details, now you would see how many quotes we got for this award, where we posted it, all those competition details that the acquisition professionals need to make an award against the BPA. Okay. So if we were to click on, as I said earlier, if we were to click on the options and accessories configurator, like I did on the previous slides earlier in the session, you're going to get a rendering identical to this, that it can be customized to meet a customer's needs. And in this one, I actually did the hard drive upgrade. You can go to a 1 terabyte or a 512 because it has a 256 in it as a base, and then you can customize it to meet your needs. So again, these are pre-competed BPAs. They're single award. So the last consumption model that I'm going to provide during this session is device as a service. And device as a service is just really another consumption model of GSS products. And this slide really here is kind of the basis of the whole program. Is you have a GSS configuration that I've showed you before. They're compliant with the OMB memo, version 5 specifications, all that. But the big difference is we're going to couple and embed some services in it. And then we're going to combine them all together, and you're going to get a single contract with a per seat per month payment. Okay, so it's a little bit different. Everything I've showed you prior to this through GSA Advantage, GSA Advantage Select, the BPAs, those were for purchasing of the machines. This here is embedding some services in it to help offload some of your IT professionals' burden that you have within your agency and give that to a provider. So what is it? It combines the government-wide strategic solution, the GSS program, hardware, the laptops and desktops that I showed you, with lifecycle management. That's the bottom line. And when it bundles it into one price per month, and for a set period of time. So in general, the term is 4 years. And really the benefit of this is a lot of the daily tasks to manage these laptops and desktops is tasking for IT professionals. And basically you're offloading some of that burden it's embedded with the machine in terms of the service price, and then it's offloaded to the contractor that was the awardee. And it allows your program managers to focus on more strategic solutions and priorities. So one of the things we always get asked is, how did you come up with these service offerings? So when we started to meet with industry, our guidance was very broad to them. The hardware piece we told them is, your offerings have to be part of the GSS program, meaning they have to be compliant with whatever version we have in place. And in this case, it's version 5. From the services piece, we kind of left it up to them, but all we told them, the guidance we gave them was, please ensure that you bucket the service offerings into categories, some type of category. We didn't care if it was good, better, or better, best, basic, enhanced, premium, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We did not care. All we asked is to put them in categories so customers can easily see if I coupled this good service plan with a small form factor machine in my agency, my approximate price is going to be X. It just makes it easier for our customers to kind of visualize and understand. And each one of these is customizable. You could remove a service offering from a good category or a better or a best to better fit your needs. So if you have any questions about device as a service, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. As of right now, we have two of the big OEMs are our only providers. We have Dell and HP. It's on their GSA contract. If you're interested in it, please reach out to us at the Workstation at gsa.gov email, and would love to have a conversation with you. And then one of the last things I'm going to cover is there's a slip sheet, and it's basically a slip sheet about the GSS program at whole, and you can see that it's a best in class vehicle. You can download it. In the notes in the bottom is the hyperlink to our CLMS site where you can register and download the slip sheet. And again, thank you for taking time to come to FAST 2020 and come to this presentation or listen to this presentation. Again, if you have any questions about the GSS program or anything else, please email us at workstations@gsa.gov. Thank you for your time and have a great day.